Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. You know, if you've been following the daily 2026 news cycle, it is incredibly easy to just get completely caught up in the relentless headlines, the debates, and all the noise. But today, we're going to do something a little different. We are zooming way out. We're going to dig into a massive 500-page data blueprint of America's macroeconomic and cultural foundation. We are literally stripping away the daily static to look at what the data actually says about American greatness.
And that brings us to the core question our source material tackles. Why is America, despite all of its very real flaws, actually kind of incredible? Well, to make sense of all this data, we're going to use a little metaphor today. The American engine. I want you to think of the country not just as a place on a map, but as a highly complex, interconnected schematic. Because when you strip away the noise, you find these distinct operational systems that keep this massive machine running.
So instead of just running through some simple top 20 countdown, we've clustered these 20 source pillars into 5 main operational systems. We'll be looking at the foundation, the innovation mindset, soft power and culture, the core framework, and finally, the American dream.
All right, let's jump right into system number 1, the foundation, which covers geography and the economy.
Listen, before culture or technology can even get off the ground, the physical stage has to be set, right? This is the literal and financial bedrock of the United States. And the data highlights America's geographic setup as an absolute cheat code. Think about it. You have massive oceans acting as these natural fortresses, friendly neighbors to the north and south, and the Mississippi River system acting as this totally frictionless superhighway for internal trade. Combine all of that with massive tracts of arable land, and the nation essentially acts as a global farm. It is, without a doubt, a geographic jackpot.
And all that unbelievable geography fuels a truly staggering number, $28 trillion. Even with all the global shifts happening right now, the US GDP is the engine that keeps the global economic lights on. And why does this matter to you? Well, because an economy of this sheer massive size creates a gravitational pull. It impacts the entire global supply chain, international markets, and ultimately, it impacts your wallet.
Now that massive GDP directly connects to 2 really key pillars. First up, you have the safety of the US dollar. It remains the world's reserve currency, which basically means when the rest of the world gets nervous, everyone buys dollars for security. Second is the physical infrastructure, specifically the interstate highway system. We are talking about 48,000 miles of completely border-free roads. You can literally drive a truck from a glacier in Alaska all the way down to a palm tree in Florida without ever stopping for a single border or customs check. The economic efficiency of that is just unmatched anywhere else.
Moving right along to system number 2, the innovation mindset. This one is all about tech, space, and a very unique culture of risk.
So what actually throws this machine into high gear? The source data points to a really unique culture of risk. In a lot of places around the world, failing at a business, that's a permanent mark of shame that can completely ruin your reputation. But in the US, it's actually often viewed as a badge of honor. You took a swing, you learned a hard lesson, and now you are quote-unquote pivot ready. That psychological freedom to fail is absolutely the secret sauce of American innovation.
And that permission to fail, it triggers a huge knock-on effect. You know, most countries are constantly worried about brain drain, losing all their smartest citizens. But the US experiences what the data calls a brain drain in reverse. The sharpest, most ambitious minds on the planet pack up their lives and move to America specifically to take those big risks. It creates this massive, self-replenishing competitive advantage.
When you take that massive influx of global talent and mix it with an appetite for risk, you get some insanely tangible, world-changing outputs. You get Silicon Valley, which essentially acts as the entire world's R&D lab for the internet and AI. You get a higher education system that's home to 27 of the top 50 universities on the planet. And you get NASA, which is literally heading back to the moon this year with the 2026 Artemis missions. The mindset directly creates those milestones.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to system number 3, soft power and culture. These are the immeasurable factors.
We've talked a lot about money and roads and rockets, but this system is all about the cultural exports and the internal spirit that you just can't measure on a spreadsheet. I mean, you can travel to a remote village on the other side of the planet, and someone is wearing a Marvel shirt or humming a Taylor Swift song. It's ubiquitous. Internally, the data shows this is driven by an unmatched spirit of volunteerism. Americans give staggering amounts of time and money to charity per capita. Add to that the deeply ingrained freedom to believe or completely not believe whatever you choose. And visually, you see it in the melting pot, where you can find authentic global cuisine within a 10-mile radius of almost any major city. It's an incredible blend.
But all of that cultural spirit also builds into something uniquely physical. 63. That number represents what the source material calls America's best idea, the 63 national parks. We're talking millions of acres are protected, just breathtaking landscapes acting as the world's most beautiful public backyard.
Which brings us to system number 4, the core framework. Essentially, why this whole thing actually works.
Because let's face it, things get messy, right? But the data highlights 3 huge stabilizing pillars that prevent the engine from breaking down. First, the rule of law remains remarkably stable, protecting property and rights even when social friction gets really intense. Second is this intense bootstraps individualism. And look, while that can be a highly intense way to live, it undeniably drives a staggering level of personal achievement. And finally, a relentless pivot toward energy innovation, from shale gas to the massive 2026 push into renewables, ensuring energy independence.
But honestly, all of that framework ultimately rests on this single fact. The US Constitution is the oldest written national constitution still in use today. And the crazy thing is, it survives not because it's rigid, but because the framers specifically designed it to be a living, self-correcting document. When the engine starts to misfire, the blueprint literally has a mechanism to rewrite the code. And that matters because it ensures the system can adapt and restabilize amidst the exact kinds of global shifts and tech leaps we've been talking about.
And finally, we hit system number 5, the American dream. Let's call it version 2.0. This right here is the ultimate driver of the entire engine. Out of all 20 pillars analyzed in our source data, this was identified as the absolute number 1 reason for the nation's unique position. Let's read this definition together. The idea that no matter where you start, you can change your story. The only place where a kid from anywhere can become the CEO of everywhere. In an era full of global cynicism, this promise is exactly what fuels all that risk-taking and innovation we've discussed today.
Now let's be real for a second. The data makes it incredibly clear. America is not a perfect country. Nowhere is, right? It is very much a work in progress. But when you zoom out and look at the entirety of the schematic, the foundation is undeniably solid gold. Plus, it comes with some uniquely amazing quirks. I mean, where else can you sit in a brightly lit 24-hour diner or seamlessly buy a gallon of milk at 3 a.m. just because you felt like it? It's a machine built for constant motion and unparalleled convenience.
So, we've unpacked the geography, the appetite for risk, the soft power, the legal framework, and the dream itself. But out of everything we've looked at today, I want to leave you with this question. If you had to remove just one of these systems, would the entire American engine stall out, or would it simply find a way to rebuild itself? Think on that, keep questioning the data, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.